We got another Netflix science fiction film hitting the platform on May 24th, which is directed by Brad Peyton and stars the likes of Jennifer Lopez, Sterling K. Brown, and Mark Strong. Now, is this a surprise hit, a sleeper hit science fiction film from Netflix, or is this just another throwaway, forgettable film by the streamer? Well, we'll be discussing that and much more in today's review of Atlas. But first, share your thoughts on the film in the comments below. Was this even on your radar? And if it was, and if you decided to watch it, let's talk about it. Let me know what you thought. Share your pros and cons, but also share your favorite Jennifer Lopez film of yours in the comments below. But also share your favorite original Netflix science fiction films in the comments below, and let's have some conversations. So Atlas follows a brilliant data analyst played by Jennifer Lopez who has a deep distrust of AI as she finds it may be her only hope when a mission to capture a renegade robot goes awry. Now, I know we've all heard that same plot 1,000 times, but does this film Atlas take a different route? Does it take a different, unique path in telling this familiar story, or does it just fall flat? Well, let's get into my thoughts. Starting off with the positives, I've always been appreciative of a film that gets straight to the point and tells you the basics of how to navigate through this movie. Within the first 10 minutes, we find out that AI has gone rogue and has started this war against humans, and we have to stop them. It's simple, it's easy, it's straightforward, no time travel, no complex reasoning on why we need to stop the AI. You jump right into the mission, and I really appreciate that. Now, while it's establishing this world, this futuristic world that we're in, we also get a moment to see futuristic technology being used, and I'm always a super fan of science fiction. It's one of my favorite genres out there, and I like the use of technology that we see, how just in a matter of years, or maybe even before that, we can see some of this technology in this film being used in our real world. And with the potential implications of more and more robots being used in everyday lives, I like how the humans use the technology against the robots for their benefit, which is something that I thought was innovative within this narrative. Now, we have director Brad Peyton, who I'm familiar with his work, and for the most part, I think he's fine. You might have seen some of his movies, whether it be Journey to the Center of the Earth Part 2, San Andreas, and we have Rampage. I think he's a good enough director that shoots spectacle pretty well, and he also handles action well enough to make you entertained, and the same could be said about his work in this film. Now, I know it's cool to poke fun of Jennifer Lopez, and to be fair, some of that is warranted. She put some of that on her own self.
I like taking my hair out like this. It reminds me like when I was 16 in the Bronx, running up and down the block.
But I've always been a fan of her work for the most part, and I'm referring to the actress, not the artist outside of acting. And also, I obviously know she's a singer and whatnot, has a singing career, but focusing on her acting, I've always said that when Jennifer is given the right material and the right direction, she can be a really good actress. I mean, she's been in some of my favorite movies growing up, whether it been The Cell, or you have films such as Enough, or most recently Hustlers, or my personal favorites, which is Selena in Out of Sight. Now, as it pertains to this film and her work in this movie, I thought it was serviceable enough. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but there are moments when she's really selling the action, and also her character having this distrust in people, but also definitely not a fan of AI. There are times that she plays into that really well. Now, to that point, the relationship that her character Atlas has and she develops with this character in this ARC suit by the name of Smith, and watching them bond and her using technology to survive on this planet, I thought that there were some really solid moments between those two, and it gave me vibes of Iron Giant meets Age of Ultron. And without a doubt, when you look at this film as a whole, I think the best parts of this film is when we see Atlas and Smith in this suit bonding and working together, and some of the better action sequences come from those two as well. Now, speaking of some other positives, when there is action on the screen, I liked it for the most part. As I mentioned, I think the director does a good enough job of handling action, and my favorite action set piece in this film involves this ambush sequence. Now, this film isn't all shoot 'em up, bang, bang, action 24/7. There's a little bit of depth. They're trying to say something about technology and AI, the reliance of it, and unless you were born yesterday, we all know that the AI conversation and technology has been a conversation for decades, but in the last few years, it has definitely become a hot topic. And just speaking to the film industry being one of them, we all know we just had a writer's strike, and the use of technology and AI being something that has made a lot of people upset. And I understand both sides of the conversation, but as that pertains to this movie, the film does play with the idea and uses it as an allegory of how AI can be used for good or how it can be used for bad. Again, not saying it's extremely detailed or anything, but when the film does focus on that idea of trusting an AI, and when it's used for good and it's used in good hands, it can be used for the betterment of humanity. No, those are my main positives, and I tried to stretch out as many as I could, and again, there are some moments that I enjoyed. But as we transition to my criticisms, it's unfortunate to me that this is yet another example of a forgettable Netflix movie. I'll start by saying, as I mentioned, we have Jennifer Lopez in this film, but we also have Sterling K. Brown and Mark Strong, and I feel that they were completely wasted. To me, Sterling K. Brown is one of the most talented and charming and charismatic actors working today, and he is completely useless in wasting this film. And the same could be said for Mark Strong. And if I'm being honest, I have been a Mark Strong fan for a very long time, and I blame some of his choices on roles on himself, but also his agent. He's a great actor, but he finds himself in some really forgettable roles, and the role that he plays in this film as the Colonel, you could have just had anyone play his role. Mark Strong could have just been any other actor in the role. And again, same could be said about Sterling K. Brown. I love you, man. You're one of the best actors in my opinion, but those two actors and someone else I'm going to mention here in a second were just kind of a waste of time. Now, sticking to the acting and also just kind of talking about miscasting, we have Simu Liu, who's the villain in this film. I believe his name was Harlan. I like Simu Liu. Now, I know he's been working the last 10 years as a background actor, as a stunt performer, and then made his way. Obviously, he made a big splash in Marvel with Shang-Chi, and he was also in Barbie last year. I like him as an actor, but him as the villain in this film, completely miscast, and it's a little bit of 50-50. I think that he was written poorly, and I didn't really like the use of the character, but if I'm being fair and pointed towards the actor, I thought Simu Liu was the worst actor in this film. There is a purpose to him kind of being artificial and stiff because he's playing a robot, but the way he carries himself and the way he plays the character, and again, the way he's written is pretty bad, but I thought the performance wasn't doing any favors. I didn't think there was any redeeming factors to him as a character in this film. Now, the film is about 2 hours long, and it starts off okay, and it picks up, but then eventually it kind of hits this point where it completely drags, and by the end of it, it completely becomes just a generic, stereotypical movie that you've seen before, and you knew exactly what was going to happen, how things were going to play out. There were absolutely no surprises in this movie, which honestly, I blame a lot of that on the writers and the screenplay. Do something different, do something unique. We've seen this story so many times. There's so many familiar beats in this film. Literally, I mentioned Age of Ultron. What the villain was doing was essentially what Ultron was doing. It's just so many familiar beats. It's can we do something different at this point? And my last point I want to bring up is there's something that never got better for me. It's the use of the green screen and this video game looking non-practical use of CGI. Once we transitioned to this planet, it was just non-stop CGI, and it just stood out like a sore thumb. It looked really bad at points. Now I have other little nitpicks and other things that didn't really work for me, but I'm just going to end my criticisms there. Now, before I give you all my final thoughts and my final score, I want to take this time to thank you all for making it to this point of the video. If you made it to this point, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Let's talk about it in the comments below about this movie, and consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel. Overall, Netflix has done it again and just keeps making these generic movies that feel and look exactly the same from the previous one, and unfortunately, Atlas isn't different. While there were elements that I did like, such as the use of the sci-fi technology, and there are some entertaining moments, and I thought that Jennifer had me interested enough, especially in the parts where she was bonding with her robot by the name of Smith. But after a while, that only went so far until it started to feel like just an evil robot taking over, trying to eliminate humanity while being drowned by terrible looking CGI. And while this might not be the worst of the worst, it's definitely nothing special about this film, so I'm going to give Atlas a 2.5 out of 5. So I didn't really come into this with expectations. As I mentioned, I didn't watch a trailer. I knew that this film was coming out, and again, I wasn't disappointed by it because again, I had zero expectations, but I'm just at the point now where I'm just seeing the same thing from Netflix, and particularly dramas, action, sci-fi, horror. They're all starting to just look like they're just kind of swapping out actors. Okay, let's put one big actor in this movie. All right, we're gonna put an actor here. It's just all the same thing, and I'm just looking for something different. Now, Netflix does occasionally give us something different. I know Hitman's coming out soon. I'll have a review for that, but this is just a generic. You can probably skip this film. But hey, if you're a huge J-Lo fan, and if you're like me and know she's a good actor, give it a chance and you might like it more than I did. But either way, let's talk about it in the comments below. Your pros, your cons, your favorite moments, your least favorite moments. Again, share your favorite Jennifer Lopez movie in the comments and share your favorite science fiction film from Netflix. For me, I gotta say my favorite performance is between Selena and Out of Sight, and I also really enjoyed her in The Cell. And as far as Netflix original science fiction films, nothing's coming to mind right now. If something does, I'll think about it in post and put it on the screen now. But I know as far as just science fiction in general, and I've said this 1,000 times on my channel, Dark is the best science fiction, anything that Netflix has done. I love Dark. If you haven't seen that show, do yourself a favor and watch it. But either way, let's wrap up this video. Thank you all again for watching. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.
Yeah.